This is Inside Douglas County on News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN. It's our daily in-depth look at people and issues that are shaping the local area. Inside Douglas County is presented by Concrete Builder Supply. Now, Inside Douglas County on News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN.
Afternoon. Thanks for being here. We cover all kinds of things around the Umpqua Valley. Of course, we've been keeping track of the Oregon State Legislature quite a bit, and along with following what's happening with both parties, also checking in with the new chair of the Oregon Republican Party, Connie Whelchel, joining us from Central Oregon. Connie, good afternoon. Thanks for being on.
Hi, thank you for having me, Kyle.
So I guess, first of all, tell us about your recent election to head the Oregon Republican Party.
Yes, well, I've never imagined myself involved in politics. I'm actually very new when it comes to politics compared to others. I got involved in 2021 in Deschutes County, and as of February of this year, I was elected as vice chair of the Oregon Republican Party, and then with the recent resignation of the ORP chair, I'm now the chair. So in a nutshell, that's how that happened.
Well, that is a pretty quick movement there. Now, let's talk for a moment about your previous chair. They were only in place for, 2 or 3 months, right?
Correct.
And what led to their exit?
Yeah, so there was some information that came out about the former chair that was not good. And you know, Jerry had faithfully and effectively served the party for several years. And so when this information came out, it was shocking. And then, you know, in our positions as leaders of the party, you know, our North Star is making sure that we do whatever we can to make sure the party is as effective as possible. And that would mean getting Republicans elected here, especially in Oregon. And so when Jerry made the decision to resign, it was out of respect for the party, and I agreed, and several of us agreed that would be the best thing as well to move forward. And we are moving forward. The people, I've had a phenomenal amount of support, and we are ready to kind of move past this, and get ready for. We have the elections coming up for special district elections here in May. And then we have midterms and the governor election in 2026 that we're already planning for.
And, of course, Jerry Cummings, who at one point lived here in the Umpqua Valley. So let me back up to your involvement in the Oregon.GOP. You said it hadn't been that long. Talk about your career, your background, other things you've done over the course of your life.
Yeah, so my background, I've been in the work comp industry off and on since 2007. Today, I am in the commercial insurance industry as a work compensation risk advisor. And so I've been involved for most of my career. I've also been in projects where I was a project coordinator for an insurance corporation for about 4 years. I've also been the operations director for a functional medicine and naturopathic clinic. I've been a personal and executive assistant to a speaker, author, and influencer in Los Angeles. I've also been a marketing agent and events coordinator. And then being born and raised here in Oregon, I attended Lynn Benton Community College and Western Oregon University. I got my Bachelor's of Science in Psychology, and I later on went back to school and obtained my Master's in Business Administration. I got involved in politics in 2021 in response to the COVID tyranny that was going on in Oregon. So at that time, and maybe listeners will recall, back in late 2020 during the holidays, Governor Brown had mandated, only 6 people per household for the holidays. People's livelihoods were being stripped away from them. Kids were forced out of their schools for way too long, to their detriment. And I was just completely appalled what was going on, especially in Oregon, where the mandates and restrictions were much more severe than other parts of the country. So my family and I, along with others, we were, especially during those December 2020 weekends, we were peacefully protesting in downtown Bend on behalf of the local businesses that had been shut down, yet the big box stores had remained open. And I was highly involved with that. And eventually, I came to the conclusion that nothing's going to change in Oregon unless our leaders change. Well, how do you do that? In the political realm, for better or worse. Okay, so is in 2021, I discovered what a precinct committee person was, or what we call PCPs. And I was appointed as a PCP in the Deschutes County Republican Party in the summer of 2021. And I got highly involved, engaged. I soaked up everything like a sponge. I did get out the vote. Eventually, I became a precinct captain. In November of 22, I was elected as the vice chair of the Deschutes Republican Party. I was reelected again in November of 24. And then also during that time, in September of 2023, I was appointed as the GOTV chair for the Oregon Republican Party. And then in May of 2024, I was the top voted national delegate to the RNC to represent Oregon that I went to this last July. Throughout 2024, I had several people asking me if I would run for an officer position for the state party. Again, I had no idea. It was foreign to me. Even when I got elected as vice chair for Deschutes Republicans in November of 22, I was not actively campaigning. I was nominated from the floor, and it just kind of happened. And so by the time I had to make a decision, I felt led to run as for vice chair. And then the rest is history. I got vice chair in February of ORP, and here I am today as the chair.
So if you would have backed up maybe right before COVID, would you ever have imagined you would have done all these things?
Never. Never. And this is why it's such a grassroots organization. I think sometimes people look at a state political party such as the Oregon Republican Party, and it's the way I used to look at it too, where it's this organization that's far removed from the people because it's all just like politicians. That's the farthest thing from the truth. It truly is grassroots, and it starts at the county level. And so, just to give a little brief synopsis on how this works, at the county party level, that's where you get involved. And then the people of the Oregon Republican Party, the voting members, are the officers and delegates of your county parties. They're just everyday people. So that's who the Oregon Republican Party is. So when people say, oh, the Oregon Republican Party, I mean, us officers, like myself as the chair, I might be the face of it, but it's not me. 133 other voting delegates from around the state, from all the different counties in Oregon, everyday people. And so I'd like to tell this story because we need people to get involved and be engaged with the politics here in Oregon, and especially to help get Republicans elected to help bring balance that is much needed in our state.
So have you always been a Republican?
No. There was a time I was a Democrat, and I always considered myself, like, for the most part, center. And then it just seemed like over time, the left continued to move further and further left, and it just felt it didn't resonate with me anymore what they were advocating for. No, I've not always been a Republican. I've converted. I've gone back and forth over the years, but yeah, I think I was a Democrat last in 2015. I was a Democrat then.
And so you really felt like then the Republican Party represented more of the direction that you felt comfortable with?
Yes. And with COVID opened my eyes because I was not politically active, before COVID. I would vote. My husband and I, we would vote. And that was about it. So when COVID happened and I started getting engaged, I started being able to see my eyes were opened up to more of what was happening, especially in Oregon. And I say that because I truly believe I would not be in this position today as chair of the ORP if I lived in a red state. Oregon was just so egregious and so extreme with some of the things that are going on with COVID and what our Democrat legislators have been pushing for the last several years in Oregon. I felt compelled to get involved. So yeah, it's so ridiculous. Some of the stuff that happens here in Oregon is just ridiculous. It's embarrassing. We're at the bottom of the list on so many stats. We have one of the worst educations in the country. We have not a terrible business climate and taxes. We are at the bottom of the list for drug overdoses and then the homelessness. And I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
All right, we're going to take a break, talk more with Connie Whelchel when we come back to interview a podcast after 1 at 541radio.com, 1245 News Radio, 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN. Inside Douglas County, 1247, Lars Larson coming up at 1, David Littlejohn with True Wealth Radio at 4. On tomorrow's program, Stephen Stanfield of the YMCA of Douglas County, and also Ashley Kluver of Umpqua Valley Arts, a 2-segment program tomorrow. And Senator Ron Wyden will join us tomorrow morning on the morning conversation at 8:30. We're talking to the Oregon Republican Party Chair, Connie Whelchel, joining us from Central Oregon this afternoon. Definitely fascinating to hear about your journey and moving so quickly through all these areas, getting so involved in politics. As you look around at Oregon, of course, you're well aware the GOP's been the minority party for decades. Now that you're the chair of the GOP and you kind of evaluate that, what do you think the party can do to gain more voters?
Well, it's actually been happening. It's not talked about a lot, but like, for example, in 2024, we registered almost 1.5 times more Republicans in Oregon than we did Democrats in Oregon. So it's happening. We've been shifting. If people look at the stats for 2024, the vast majority of counties with their voting have shifted to the Republican side. So it is happening. And we have been a minority for a while. So I think, the Democrats, I think, are very good with masking their failed policies as compassion, but they've really ruined the lives of many small business owners during COVID. And then they put our kids last when it comes to learning because of the way that they are wanting to operate our education system. It's just, and then they voted for and supported decriminalization of hard drugs, leading to a crime wave across our state, drug epidemics destroying families. And really the bottom line, the Republican message is one that truly promotes personal freedom from government overreach and an affordable way of life that is truly compassionate to the masses, to our state's problems.
As you've gotten to know more and more party members being involved at the statewide level, do you see differences, though, between the urban Republicans and the rural Republicans? Not a huge. I mean, I think that there definitely are differences with specific priorities due to the needs of rural and urban areas. But as far as the vision for our state, no, I think we're pretty uniform there. Republicans, we want an Oregon that is safe, affordable, and functional. And going forward, along with those things, what do you think the party's priorities should be?
Well, our top priority is to help get Republicans elected and get more people like me involved in the political process. We need everyday people. We have over 700,000 registered Republicans in Oregon, and I would love to see more of them get involved and get engaged with their county parties. That's where it starts. That's where you can help get Republicans elected. And, it's interesting I'm part of the Republican Party because, as you know, I'm not a lifelong Republican. But the way I see it in Oregon, because things have become so far extreme left, the reality is this is our response back. We've got to bring Oregon back to balance.
Now, as you look at kind of what you'd like to do, I mean, you've just been in place for a few weeks here, but what are some of the thoughts that you have to help lead the party, some things you would like to see take place?
Yeah, so again, top priority, North Star, get Republicans elected and get more people like me involved. And some of the top priorities as far as tasks go, fundraising, we need money. We need money in the party to help get out the vote for our Republican candidates here in Oregon. Getting out the vote, the ground game, that's huge. Last year we have some great resources and tools and strategies that we've already been disseminating across the county parties starting last year. We're going to continue to evolve on those tools and strategies. Last week I was on the phone with the RNC talking about some things that they have available to us, and I'm going to be implementing some of those things here in the state too. So we actually have a lot of tools and strategies ready to go to get out the vote. Now we need people. So we need volunteers around the state. We need other Republicans around the state to help us get those Republicans elected.
With so much going on in the world right now, and certainly a lot of changes on the national level, are you finding people, though, are maybe just a little frustrated with politics, period?
Yes, and I'm right there with them. I mean, the journey that led me here was born out of my frustration with the politics here. And so to help alleviate that angst in me, getting involved was exactly what I needed to do. And so I hope people can take that frustration and channel it into something productive and good for our state and their communities.
And some people, though, I think in recent months have just been wanting to walk away from being involved with anything politically and just stay away from the whole area because there is so much, again, polarization there. And a lot of people seem to be very cautious about what they want to say anywhere in public because they don't know if the person they're talking to is going to have the opposite reaction, and it turns into a big verbal sparring match.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm always one. I try to be careful with my words as well. I think it's always ideal to find common ground with the people. I think overall we have more in common than we have different. We all want to raise our families. We all want to love our kids. We all want what's best for everyone. There's just different ideas of going about doing that. So building relationships and building rapport with people, even across the aisle, I think is important. And as far as Republicans, being able to enlarge our tent, I think is key as well. You know, we have a wide spectrum of people in our party, anywhere from what people would call like the religious right all the way up to like libertarian Republicans. And then we also now have Maha moms that are joining our party. I mean, great examples at a national level of this. You see Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, RFK Jr. They've also seen the light, if you will, and see how the left has just become so far extreme and catering to really just a small minority of people with what they're pushing. And they've seen the common sense, the truly compassionate approach that is positively affecting the masses versus a fraction of the population, especially being able to help benefit families and businesses and people who just want to live their lives in peace.
You mentioned interacting with the GOP infrastructure on the national level. What are some of the other things that you've learned as you're beginning that process?
I'm still learning. So it's been, I think, 2 weeks, Kyle. So I am still learning. I'm actually learning that there's actually quite a bit of resources there at that level. I also have been learning a little bit more about election security as well. The RNC, they filed over 150 lawsuits the last election cycles in this country, mostly with swing states. And so I've been asking for some resources in that arena as well. So I'm still learning, but so far it's interesting. There's a lot of resources there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what other tools I can help bring here to Oregon.
Now, for parts of the state, Oregon has got this rural-urban divide on a lot of different levels. For the GOP, though, you're in Redmond, which is rural to an extent, but you're right by Bend, which is not so much. How do you feel like the GOP, what does the GOP need to do to attract more voters in the more urban areas, kind of the, Eugene to Portland segment?
Well, I think we need to do a better job getting out the vote in those areas and educating people. So I'm always a huge advocate for getting out in the community and talking with people. This time last year, I was doing booths, voter registration booths, and Republican booths at the Deschutes County Fairgrounds, educating people and letting them know what the policies are. Because like you said earlier, a lot of people have removed themselves from politics. They're pretty apathetic. They don't want to deal with the polarization. So a lot of them are not well informed with what's going on with things. So I think education is a big piece. And again, that goes back to we need a lot of people to help volunteer to help get out the message.
And how much have you gotten to know some of, for instance, there are elected officials in Oregon, members of the legislature, maybe from your area there in Deschutes County?
So I've the last couple of years being vice chair out here, I've gotten to know most, if not all of them, I think. And they've also been engaged with us at the Deschutes Republican Party, and they came to like our last fundraiser back in March, and we had a couple of our county commissioners there. We had a couple of our state representatives there speaking. We had a state senator there, also speaking at our event. We've been very engaged, and we continue to look forward to building that relationship with our legislators at a state level as well. I just actually this morning I was on a Zoom with the Republican legislators in Salem earlier today, talking about some things. So that's positive as well.
And people should be reminded, if they don't realize, this is not necessarily your regular paid job, right?
Right. I'm talking to you on my lunch hour right now.
And I think a lot of people might be surprised to realize that a party chair is basically, for the most part, a volunteer position, right?
Yes, that's a great point, Kyle. Yes, and that's the other thing that people need to understand is this is all volunteer. It's all volunteer-based. We do the best that we can, but the truth of the matter is, we're always like, understaffed, if I can even say it that way, under-resourced, because we want to make sure we give our money to the right cause of getting Republicans elected. But yes, this is all volunteer. We're all volunteers here.
All right, Connie Whelchel, the new chair of the Oregon Republican Party at Inside Douglas County. Connie, thanks for being on today.
Thank you for having me.
1258 News Radio, 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN.
You've been listening to Inside Douglas County on News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN, a daily look at the people and issues that are shaping Douglas County. It's presented by Concrete Builder Supply. The show will be available as a podcast in just a few minutes at 541radio.com. So share it around and let others who weren't listening live know about today's show. Inside Douglas County is a public affairs presentation of Brook Communications. Stay connected with local news and information. News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN.